Hello, everybody. Welcome back to part 2 of How to Find the Love of Your Life. We are going to wait a couple of moments to let everybody arrive. So I just want to start off with that next week we are going to have our Do Something Amazing with Your Life webinar. Becoming a net missionary is a massive opportunity for you to share your faith with others and kickstart the life of purpose that God has called you to live. So copy the link that's in the chat and register right now if you or somebody you know is trying to figure out that next step and to see if becoming a net missionary is right for you. So we're just going to hang on for a couple more moments and let everybody settle in. All right, welcome back to part 2, back by popular demand, of How to Find the Love of Your Life. The short of it is we weren't able to get to everybody's questions, to your questions last time. And so our beautiful and gracious panelists have graciously agreed to be back this week to do just that. So while we go to the questions that came up last time, we want to encourage you guys to stay active on the chat, stay engaged, write down your questions. No guarantees. We are going to wrap things up by 8:30, but if we manage to get through all the questions from last time, write your questions in the Q&A section, and we will do our best to get to them if there's time. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome our lovely panelists back. So if you can turn your videos back on. There they are. Welcome, Des and Liz. And I think Joe and Adelaide are just putting their sweet little baby crews to bed, and then they're going to join us. So Des and Liz, why don't you tell, if there's any new watchers, any new viewers out there, why don't you tell us a little recap about who you are, where you're from, what brings you to the webinar tonight?
Great.
Sure. So Elizabeth and Desmond Sanish, and we live in Calgary, Alberta, and we were blessed to serve on net 2 years each, long ago. We also served on net staff for several years. We're really blessed to do that. And in the last, 10 years, we've been married 13 years. We have 5 children, ranging from 12 years old to 1 year old. So 5 kids. And yeah, in the last 10 years, almost 10 years, we've been serving as mentors and in marriage preparation with couples. Yeah, and we're just really, really passionate about our first love, Jesus, and the gift that marriage is. Yeah, as a path to holiness and to heaven. So we love to share, and yeah, thanks for having us.
And as to how we came here, Garth Pereira is very, very convincing over the phone, and so is Julia. They don't take no for an answer. So that's where we are. That's how we got here.
Oh, welcome back. And it's so good to have you guys back. I certainly enjoyed, I took in so much just getting to interview you guys, and I'm sure that our audience did too. Yeah, I know for me, one of the things that really stood out to me during last week's webinar, I know Sister Rose Claire isn't able to be here tonight, but one of the things she spoke about were the two fears of missing out, and fear of being in the wrong vocation. And then at the end of the day, I love that she said, do it scared and enjoy the dance. Like those were huge. Do it scared. Yeah, what stood out for you guys, or what, just from the webinar last week, what kind of struck a chord?
One thing that I took away is something that Joe actually said that was very beautiful. And that's, he said in one way that he wrestled with kind of that fear of rejection and approaching like a woman was to see it in light of, I want this woman to be happy. She's good. She's cherished by God. She's loved by God. She's a daughter of God. And so I'm going to put myself out and I'm going to ask her, and it's a win-win situation. She says no, then she is affirmed by me asking her. She can know and trust that she is cherished, affirmed, and beautiful. If she says yes, that's a win too. But if she says no, that's a win too. And so one thing I've learned over years is that avoiding things tends not to solve things. So and that would be an example too of doing it scared. But the way he put it, I thought was of value, to know that you're making a gift of yourself just by asking. And if you say no, don't allow that to like deter you. Like, and so I thought that was a neat little point.
Totally. I feel like.
Sorry, go ahead. The second thing that stood out to me is that I feel like ever since Zoom calls, I've always felt I had a big head, but now that I'm doing all these video conferencing, I know I have a big head, and so self-conscious of that.
You shouldn't be, it's filled with lots of knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah. I was 10 pounds when I was born, and it was mostly like a big head.
Liz, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I love what I had the same points that stood out to me. Yeah, fear of missing out, fear of being miserable. Yeah, those were exactly what I experienced as I was diving into my vocation. So no, those were beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so good to have you guys back. Thank you. Joe and Adelaide, that was fast bedtime.
Amazing.
Yeah, good work.
We might have to slip out again. We tried to put him down a little bit earlier than he's used to, and so the rebellion has begun. So
material for a song in there somewhere.
Yeah. So we're just had Des and Liz kind of reintroduce themselves. Why don't you guys go ahead and do that? Just who you are, where you're from, what brought you here tonight.
Well, since we last met, we have 2 more children. I'm a Canadian, she's an American. Somehow we met each other in the middle. We both moved from our hometowns, from Maryland, from Ontario. We now live in Dallas, Texas. We have a beautiful screaming boy who is about 11 months. And we are a couple who loves to be vulnerable and real, because that's part of our journey, our story. As we shared last week, we had a period where we had to break up on a journey of healing ourselves, and then the Lord in his timing brought us back together. And yeah, it's a beautiful witness to the Lord's timing for relationships and vocation. So
yeah, I think we're really passionate about the journey of the heart, and also just having seen the hand of God in our own love story. Like, we are huge believers in God's perfect plan for every vocation. And so being able to share that witness, I think, is something that we are so honored to be able to do, to encourage, because I feel like I personally was a believer that everyone else had a beautiful love story for them, but maybe not for me. And so I'm one who loves to speak that truth into others, that God has curated and is authoring a perfect plan for your vocation.
Oh, I just want to bask in that. It's so beautiful. I feel like you guys said you love vulnerability, and I feel like vulnerability begets vulnerability, and that's what people want. And so thank you all for coming back. And yeah, I think without further ado, let's crack into these questions that we ran out of time for last time. So we'll start. We have one for Des, asked by Michael. Desmond, what can be some of the strategies for coming out of isolation, representing ourselves truly?
That is a great question, because isolation is very painful. To be isolated from other people. We're made for community and communion. My advice would be to not wait until we're out of like isolation with all the amazing technologies out there, to really connect, either with like to connect already with wherever you're at in your state in life, with like friends, with parents, to not wait until we're face to face, and to follow those promptings of the Holy Spirit. We're hardwired for community, but we're hardwired for service as well. If there's someone in your network that you think that would appreciate a phone call, or is maybe a little bit more isolated than others, to call that person. I promise you'll walk off of that call feeling a little bit better, knowing that you've made that connection. So that's what I would say about that.
Oh, I love that. Don't wait.
Yep.
Don't wait. Thank you for that. Adelaide, from Marianne, how would you recommend discerning a particular relationship to see if it is of God or not?
Yeah, I love that question so much. I was reflecting over it this past week, just in preparation to be able to kind of share my thoughts on it this week. And I really think that it's important to look at the fruits of the Spirit. The Holy Spirit is God's life and love within us. And so when we're looking at a relationship, looking at the fruits of the Spirit there, I think is really important. Is it peace offering? Is it joy offering? Do you see that, you are being led to be more faithful to God? Do you see that faithfulness in that person you're in a relationship with? And so just looking at the fruits of the Spirit there to see if it's of God, because you're going to know, you're going to see, is the Holy Spirit present in this place? And so just, looking in your own heart and seeing, is it life-giving? Because ultimately a relationship, vocational relationship is all relationships really are meant to be life-offering, life-giving. And in the married vocation, in a very tangible way, it's going to be life-giving in the form of children. And so, asking you that question of, is this relationship, do I see the signs of God present in this place? Do I see this relationship leading me closer to the Lord or farther away from the Lord? Do I find myself making moral and virtue or integrity compromising decisions, or am I being sacrifice? So that question of compromise versus sacrifice, I think, is really important. But again, just like looking at the signs of the Spirit, I think is really critical. So if you want to look up, that list of the fruits of the Spirit and just ask yourself, do I see that in myself? Do I see that in the other person? And do I see it in the relationship with us together?
Oh, wow. I'm a horrible multitasker. So someone write that down for me, compromise or sacrifice. That's really beautiful. Thank you. Wow. So good. Jojo, you ready? Asked by anonymous attendee. So I've known several women who get very anxious when a man is interested in them. How do you pursue a woman in such a way that she feels loved, even if she says no, instead of feeling guilty for turning you away?
So So I think if I'm understanding the question, it's really on like the pursuit part of it. How do I pursue a woman in such a way so she feels love even when she says no, instead of guilty for turning away? And the thing I was just thinking about was patience and understanding. And so if a person's feeling anxious from the pursuit, well, if you really care to understand the person, you might reconsider your approach, because, I think I've had this before where I'm like, oh, but you're going to love this. And it's like, actually, that's like a gift you want to give, but it's not like a gift that I'm even maybe able to receive yet. So if you desire to get to know them, so there's that understanding of where they're at, and then being patient with them. And the funny thing is, though, I think no is like a great answer. It's all the other things that don't say either yes or no that are usually the problems. Because, when it's not defined like that, I think a man who's trying to pursue, it's like, well, I never really got the no, so I don't feel at peace yet, so I feel like I need to continue to pursue. But the girl's like, why is he still here? I'm totally not into this. But really, like, he hasn't got the clear answer. So I think sometimes, like, we shouldn't be afraid of the no. I mean, the yes is a great thing, but I mean, we should be afraid of the no, because that can just help people be less anxious. I think it helps I know, do I continue to pursue, or do I, back off and, go
Totally.
patience and understanding, I think.
I love that, like not being afraid of a no, and no being a good thing sometimes. Like, if I may share from my own experiences of sometimes a relationship not working out in the world's eyes. To me, I look at that and I say it actually did work out because it was a healthy discernment, So anyway, I just piggybacking off of your wonderful answer. And also, for all of the lovely panelists, please feel free to jump in at any time if anything is kind of speaking to you and you want to give your 2 cents there. I actually got a question here, so I'll jump right into that. So from an anonymous attendee, everybody says not to have romantic expectations based on movies, fiction, even other people's love stories. I've tried to do that, but it's resulted in me expecting so little romance from the Catholic men I've dated that I haven't felt pursued. How are we to develop healthy and reasonable expectations for romance? So first of all, to whoever asked this question, thank you. I love this question. This isn't meant as a self-affirmation, but it's going to sound like it. Some of the people closest to me call me affectionately a Disney princess. And the reason I bring that up is because I often have those kind of matched expectations of this magical world that I live in, and delighting in things and in people, and sometimes my expectation matches that of a Disney princess. And I say that because I hope that people can relate to it as well. A friend of mine said that Hollywood would have us believe that finding your place in the world can be done in the span of a movie or an episode, which we know is not true, but often need to be reminded of that. The reality is, when I was reflecting on this question, we just want to be known, to be loved, and to be served. And that is our calling in life, is to know and to love and serve the Lord and to be happy with him in the next world. But when that translates into human love, we're truly loving God in each other. And so I'm really passionate about this. But we want to know and love and serve God in the people around us. And so I think what that translates to is these like desires for grand gestures of romance, and romance is a beautiful thing. really what we want is to be known and to be loved and to be served. And for me, I know that some of the most romantic things I've experienced are just a handwritten note, even a thoughtful text, a bouquet of wildflowers, a morning coffee before work. I think, Adelaide, you said that last time. Like, you feel so loved when Joe just leaves you coffee before work. And I know for me it's the same. Like, it's just that time, just that thought. I know you like coffee, and I want to have a coffee with you, or I want to leave you a coffee. Write a little note on it, you know? So almost looking at life through that lens of does he know me, you know? As simple as it sounds. Yeah. So anybody else have anything they want to add on that? I know it's a pretty hot topic.
I would add one thing. I was thinking about that question. I think it's a really, like you said, a good one. And for some reason, my mind goes to my daughters when they're, you know, years from now, when they're out there and they're asking this question. And so this is coming from the mom person. But it's sort of one of the thoughts I have. Well, first of all, to address the first part, the person asking was saying, like, I know that I shouldn't, have expectations based on movies and such, right? But even expectations that come from the couples, real couples that you know, like in real life, like maybe there's couples in your life that you just admire and just find to be so beautiful. Like, their love story is amazing to you, and you long for that, and that's sort of your idea of what love should be like. But the reality is, like, and it is beautiful, and I'm not taking away from that, but we all do it. Like, we all sort of have this sort of idea of what a relationship is like when we're not in it. But if you were to ask those couples, you know, tell me the raw, like, give me the goods, you know, they would tell you that their relationship's not perfect. They would tell you that their significant other has failed in many different ways, and that they've failed, and that they've learned, and that they're figuring it out, and that they're growing, and that God is merciful, and that they are called to be merciful. And it's that side of things that a lot of times we don't see. We don't really know. And so it's good to be reminded of that. And I would also add that as far as I was going back to, like, my daughters, I would say, I would advise my daughters, and I guess I should stop saying that because I'm making myself sound old. I would sort of say that, you, like, as a woman, I think it's important, yes, to sort of acknowledge that no man is perfect, and that they're all men are you know, beautifully imperfect, and that but I would say, so okay, so we know that, and at the same time I would invite them to at least, like, to know and to seek a man who is seeking to take his identity in Christ, who's working on that fundamental truth that he may not be there yet. It's a journey of a lifetime, but he's seeking to take his identity in the Father's love, and he's seeking to find his worth in the Father's love, because ultimately a man can't give what they don't have. If they don't know who they are, they're going to be constantly seeking to fill that vacuum, that need to find worth in either you as a woman, or in the things he does, or in the world, and sometimes in unhealthy ways, because it's a very painful thing not to know who you are. There can be all kinds of ways that you fill that void, and it's very painful. And so I would caution women to kind of just, you know, she said, like, I don't know, I forget how she worded that question, but, like, that is one thing that you should not compromise on. You should at least, you should make sure that the man that you're you know, discerning to date is seeking his identity in Christ. And I don't know if that's too harsh, or if that's like, but I'm just saying this again from that motherly perspective. Because it can be really painful and hard if a man is just, if he's not willing, or not even, like, if he's not even willing. It's different if he doesn't know, and maybe he's coming to know, right? So very merciful, beautiful lens of mercy and love. But I just think that if he's unwilling to, he just doesn't want to, or doesn't get it, or just chooses not to, I think that can be a very difficult road.
All I can say is amen. absolutely, 100% praise. I agree with everything you're saying. I think what you're saying leads me to think of how, as a woman, like, we desire a man who's going to love us like Christ. And what did Christ do? But he lay his life down for us. And so, along that vein, you know, earlier, Julia, you were saying, like, we have this desire to be known. But I think that one of the most romantic moments I've had in my life is not just being known, but being received. And I think the journey of love is learning how to receive and accept and love someone in their limitations and their brokenness and their sin. And that's exactly what Jesus does. Like, he dies for us when we're unworthy, when we're broken, when we're dirty, when we're sinful. And I think that have a man pursue us, to know us, but then to receive us once we're known is so important in that journey. And I think that becomes romantic. Like, wow, you and you're willing to sacrifice for me, even when you know that I'm broken, when you know that I'm sinful, when you know that I have limitations in my ability to even love you. I would just add that as well, just from my own kind of experience and journey.
I would just say, add one thing: lay your life down, and if she likes dancing, take her dancing.
Yes, Desmond.
Even if you feel like you have two left feet, take her dancing.
Lay your life down, and if she likes snowshoeing, honor her. Get on those snowshoes.
So awesome.
And I'll just say, you were voted as Jasmine. I was thinking Frozen, because you live in Ottawa and the cold doesn't bother you anyway. That's my dadness coming in. I'm owning my dad jokes. I apologize for all the participants for enduring that. I couldn't resist.
100%.
So good. I saw that. I love this question. I'm sad I can't vote.
Rapunzel. Rapunzel's coming in.
Yes. Really?
Yeah.
I'm getting distracted. This is bad. This is why I don't look at the chat while I'm doing this. It's good. Good. Okay, so Liz, back to you. We have a question from an anonymous attendee. This one's good. What boundaries did you have with Des when he was discerning the priesthood?
Yes, indeed. Hard, very hard. I would say one of the things that circumstances that we had was that Des was in BC and I was in Ontario. So the seminary he was at.
That's way more than 2 meters, folks. That's like province.
So there was a built-in distance between us. So that kind of matters. That's kind of relevant, obviously. But yeah, I would say for us, so Des was in the seminary for 2 years, and the first year, we would talk on the phone. I remember, I think he called me on my birthday, and he may have called me at Christmas or something. And maybe like, I don't know, a handful of times. I didn't really count, but he called me.
And the feast days. Okay, there's a lot of feast days in churches.
This is his joke. He decided he'd only call me on feast days.
It's St. Engelbert. I thought I would just call to wish you happy feast day of St. Engelbert.
I love it.
Yeah, and the only other time we saw each other was we were actually asked to speak at a youth rally to give a talk together on real love, actually, that year. And so we hadn't seen each other. He got flown in from BC, and we got to talk about love on a stage in front of 500 young people. It was fun, but I will say that it was incredibly painful after to surrender all over again and to let him go all over again. And so that's, and then the second year, I shared this before, I think, but after a year of Des being in the seminary, I felt the call through prayer to close that communication entirely and completely and for good. And so we had one last phone call where I shared that with Des, and I just said, I want you to be so happy, and I want you. I need to close this door for good, and I just need to say goodbye and thank you, thank you so much for everything, and so it was very painful. I made sure it was going to be only 10 minutes, no more. I didn't want to talk. I planned it. It This is going to be short and sweet and to the point, and hang up and we're done. And so that was very hard, but I will say this, just to speak into this question, and maybe if you're in this circumstance where, you know, there's a friend, someone who you really love, who is discerning a call to religious life or priesthood, after I made that decision, as painful as it was freeing. There was a profound peace, and it hurt so bad. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I barely made it through that conversation and the weeks that followed as well. But all kinds of doors opened to me, freedom, and just a deeper intimacy with Jesus, even, because, you know, when you give him your heart, you know, I was giving the Lord my heart, and I was saying, I trust you to take care of my heart and to lead me to a place of peace and joy and just to a good place. He is faithful. And so I would recommend that if you're in that situation, that you do really seriously discern. I have a friend who was asking me this actually, like, very recently, and I said I recommend, and I asked her to pray about it. I said to not write letters, to not talk, and to not meet for coffees when he's on vacation. To just say, you know, hey, you know, I value your friendship and it's awesome, and you're so good and I'm grateful, but I just need to kind of, let go of the communication. And you know what comes too is that actually Des would say, and I don't know if he wants to say, but for him, when he told me that he needed me to do that. He needed to be free, like, actually.
Yeah, on the guy's part there, you need to do what you're called to do, and you need to wholeheartedly pursue what's before you. And if you've chosen to go to the seminary, then that's your deal. Focus in on that, hone in on that. And so there's nothing but good that came from that. So that's nice.
Yeah, actually, it was only a year. He did a second year, and then he had discerned. And I think that's a fruit of that, is just being able to actually discern more clearly and more quickly, because your heart is not tied up in with the emotions and the just all the strong emotions that come with communicating with somebody that you really do love. So yeah, that's my. It's not maybe the advice you want to hear, but it's the honest experience that I had, and recommend.
It's really beautiful. Thank you both for sharing about that. So Adelaide from Sarah. These are all really wonderful questions, by the way. Thank you guys so much. So a question for Adelaide from Sarah. It seems like the only thing guys know these days is sexual relationships. It's hard to find someone who is not a virgin. What are your thoughts of dating and marrying a non-virgin? I'm still quite young and have not met very Catholic guys who are willing to wait for me. It's quite discouraging.
Yeah. First of all, I've been there, in as much as, you know, I've gone on dates with guys that, you know, wouldn't wait, weren't planning on waiting, weren't sure if they would wait, they would be able to wait, they didn't see the value of it. I've, you know, been on dates with Catholics that also weren't planning on living a life of chastity. And so, first of all, like, my heart, like, empathizes, especially with that question of, will there be someone in the dating pool who sees my sexuality, my body, my heart as a gift, as a complete gift, and will they honor that? So just wanted to start and preface there. I also want to say, though, that we're all called to chastity, and I think that if I've seen the journey of, you know, my life and those different relationships or different dating encounters, and then even in marriage, that patience, that temperance, that prudence, that respect that we see in our dating period or dating season is a foreshadowing of what we'll see in our marriage. And so if we are going to, you know, discern with someone who doesn't respect and love us for our values, for our sexuality, for seeing us, our bodies as a gift, then that is going to seep into our married experience. And so when I've had those, you know, those dating encounters, what I recognized is that if I wasn't going to be, honored for the desire to live chastity in my single life, then I wasn't going to be honored and respected in my married status either. And so that's just something to consider. I also realized in those relationships too that I didn't like being the policeman. If I was dating someone who didn't want to live a life of chastity, I didn't want to be the person who was, putting the boundaries and holding the boundaries constantly. That's exhausting. I was someone who was going to strive to honor and respect me, and that I could also honor and respect without feeling pushed, without feeling pressured. And so I think that's really important too, is like, as a woman, like, we're meant to be protected. We're not meant to be threatened. And so to have someone who, in a dating relationship that's not going to desire that chastity, that can put us in a position where we are having to protect ourselves and defend ourselves, which sounds kind of maybe a little much, but in reality, like, we're meant to be protected and honored. And if someone isn't able to do that, then that's, that puts our discernment even in jeopardy, because how are we meant to discern that relationship and what our marriage would look like? So in terms of, not being able to potentially find a virgin and marrying, a non-virgin, I have to say that first, there's baggage that comes with our sexual encounters, because God's beautiful, perfect design is that it's bounding. And so, we might wind up falling in love and being called to marry someone who has had those encounters. And, Joe and I have had different experiences and have found healing in those places, because we have had, brokenness or woundedness in that area. So there's beautiful redemption that can happen in the married life. It's important to be cognizant when we're asking ourselves, am I going to live chastely prior to marriage? And am I willing to marry someone who maybe hasn't lived chastity, that there is going to be a journey of healing, because there will be woundedness, there will be brokenness, because those bonds weren't with the right person and weren't in a God ordained space. So there's going to be places that need to be healed. But I can tell you that there are men out there that desire to honor your body, who receive the gift of your sexuality. And so because that's such a huge part too of the married vocation, I place a lot of precedence on that. I would challenge and encourage others to do that. You want to orient your dating, your discernment process in a way that, first of all, you don't have that bondage that can impair your discernment, but also you want to cultivate, and you want someone to be able to receive you. Ultimately, you want to be seen as a gift. You want to be able to be received as a gift. And so first and foremost, whether the person that you feel called to marry in the end is a virgin or not, you want to know that they're going to receive the gift of your body, the gift of your heart, and the gift of stewarding your soul to heaven for the rest of your life.
Wow. Beautiful perspective. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would just add, I just want to say there's so much hope. Like, God writes straight with crooked lines, right? And if you meet somebody who has not always lived that truth out about our sexuality and and chastity, but they have discovered through their faith like this gift, and they've recommitted to that, God brings a greater good out of a bad situation than if there was no brokenness, right? He brings a greater good. He restores, and that's what you said, Adelaide. He the redemptive power of Christ's healing is very real. So to bring hope, and maybe not to get caught up on, like, I mean, I don't want to say it's not important, but I'm saying, like, if a person has experienced conversion, if they really have recommitted their heart and their life to Christ, then maybe not to get caught up on like the actual, like, okay, are you a virgin, are you not a virgin, and if you're not, then I'm, it's like to really kind of, like you said, fruits of the spirit, and like to really kind of see and know that there's so much hope in that, and so much beauty and healing, like you said. Like, I just affirm that. So
sharing that, absolutely. I think too that a story that was really powerful for me to read and to hear about is the story of Crystalina and Jason Everett. So talking about exactly what you're sharing here, Liz, I think that that's a beautiful testimony of exactly what you're saying.
I'm hoping that, and assuming that every one of the participants in this conversation has heard of Jason and Christina Everett. If you haven't, you have to tap into their resources. That's like what they do. Jason speaks to 100,000 young people a year, and they're both have exceptional resources. It's worth revisiting. I've tapped into some of their resources over the years, and I'm always impressed.
Des, we have a question for you from Thomas. How do you know that someone is the right one, or how do you meet someone for the first time that interests you? He says, I tried to think in certain events such as school, college, church events, thinking you'd find someone, but you didn't. So how do you meet someone you want to date or interested, but how do you commit to it? And how do you know if you're ready?
Yeah, that's another great question. Just to throw some thoughts out there, I was talking with a friend today, and she's a young Al. She has a lot of joy, and she said something that really connected with me. Her name is like Emily, and she said it's not like we're standing around kind of like waiting. You want to be actively involved. Like it's kind of like a race. I'm gonna like that race. And we're running towards Jesus, who's not an idea or a philosophy, but a person. And so there's real work involved with that. You want to be involved with things that you're passionate about, whatever your hobbies are, whether it's like chess or rowing or swimming. You're the apostolic component of your life, serving others in somehow. And in this race, you want to look and see who's like running beside you, and then, okay, am I attracted to this person? Is this person like doing the same things and pursuing? Because ultimately, you're not just completely turned towards each other, and that's how it unfolded for me from my own experiences. Is kind of like chasing, running towards the Lord, and I saw this person running beside me. I was actually trying to keep up with her, and then so that you share the same master and the same mission, and all those like other dynamics. But so I would say to continue to keep the focus on the Lord and be spending yourself wholeheartedly in the endeavors that God has for you uniquely in front of you, and then allow those friendships to take place, go to deeper levels in those friendships, and then take it to the next level from there. A great book is C.S. Lewis, Four Loves, talks about that friendship in a beautiful way. Another book I'd recommend on the girl side of things, I've heard lots of good things about it. I haven't read it myself, but Emotional Virtue is another book I've heard lots of good things about. So that's what I would say. Feel free to add to it, anybody else.
Awesome, Des. Got a question for you, Joe, from Gavin. So he says, I recently had a friend recommend I go on a dating fast. I agree that it is what I need, but I also feel strongly that God is bringing me towards married life. So my question is, do you recommend a time period before I start dating again, or should I just wait until God has put that woman into my life whom I'm supposed to marry? I don't want to miss her if I'm so adamant about my fast.
Great question, Gavin. So when I was thinking about this, I immediately thought, yeah, there's good reasons to fast. Sorry, can you hear the police sirens? Dallas, folks, it's crazy out here. So there are good reasons to fast, I think, from dating, and then there could also, I guess, be bad reasons. But his point at the end where he was saying, like, I don't want to miss the person. I don't think in the end you can miss the person, in that God makes all things work for good. And so he even works with Liz was talking before, with our crooked lines, that you know, I think life is in many ways, I think, more generous than we think it is. The opposite of generous, whatever. Yeah, whatever. But I think like there are good reasons to, and this is kind of piggybacking off of too what Des was talking about with focus, is that a good reason to fast is, I think, mission. If you're on a mission, you know, if you're using a racing analogy too, if you're constantly looking to the sides, you know, you're probably going to trip over something in front of you and you're not focused on what you're supposed to be doing. So, you know, NET itself has a time that it recommends you fast from dating. If you came in dating someone, that's fine. But it's not really a time to be looking to the left and the right. Although, you know, that's a beautiful time to also see like, yeah, like what are my heart's desires, and finding out, you know, the beauty of friendships, and also to the purity of relationships. A time on NET can also be very healing, where when people have the freedom to do a mission, but then they also see like, hey, wow, this is like a kind of cool relationship. I'd love to maybe continue this beyond just, you know, the 2 years or the year that we're, you know, doing mission. So I think there are good reasons. So specifically for Gavin, I mean, he himself thinks that there's a time that I think is right, and that's okay. So, you know, you can say like, I'm going to take this time to focus on this thing. And especially if you have a spiritual director in your life, I mean, it's good to kind of ideas, because we might be like, okay, I'm going to take 10 years to fast and pray and do these things. And I've heard too that, you know, if for some people, if they've come out of a very serious relationship, or even if they've just come out of a very serious commitment, like they've left the seminary, or they're still unsure about certain things of their life, they might, you know, they might give themselves a longer period of time to even go on a journey of healing. You know, if you're a, what do you call that? Like a person who dates like perpetually, like you're out of a relationship and you already have the next one lined up as soon as you get, you might want to like take a look at like behaviors and patterns in your life that maybe I don't like. Why are these relationships not working? Is it something that I can work on myself, but I need the space to do that on my own and not have someone else that I'm focused on? So I think, yeah, I think fasting from dating, I would imagine it would be a thing of mission. So if you're on a mission, then give your heart totally to that mission. And it usually has a limit on it anyways. Or you need a time of healing in some area. You need to like, be then in a place where you can, like Adelaide was talking to, but you can give your heart and you're able to receive the heart of another person. Because I think sometimes too, we use a relationship to kind of just medicate something that's going on. We're not, you know, it's painful for the other person too, and those sort of things. So yeah, I think fasting can be just like any medicine. It can be for your health, but if you take the wrong medicine, it can be detrimental, right? So working maybe with a good spiritual friend to kind of bounce those ideas off of it, to really ask yourself, why am I doing this? What's the length of time? Because I even like think for NET, like NET recommends 6 months.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's like, I think a good recommendation, because it's like, you just came out of something very intense. And so, of course, you got like everything on like the upper level of feelings, emotions, and everything. And you want to jump right into the next thing. But, you know, to really let things settle down, you're going to have clarity. You know, you might find out that that was just a proximity attraction and not something deeper that you might want to really pursue. So yes, Gavin, God bless you, and find a good friend.
Aw, thanks, Joe. I'm going to hop over to a question from me, from an anonymous attendee. So, how do you overcome the fear of being hurt or rejected to pursue a relationship, or even just a first date with someone you're interested in? Great question. Thank you for asking it. So number one, I would say have courage. So I believe that people should date with intentionality, but I also think people should take dating more lightly. So I do think you should take dating. I'll say it again. People should date with intentionality, yes, but I would encourage more people to take dating lightly. What I mean by that is I think that more guys, if they're ready, should ask more women out, and I do think more women should say yes. So it takes courage on both ends. But I think going on a simple date can often be looked at as this, really big, intense thing, and it doesn't have to be. It can just be, you don't have to know if you're meant to get married or not, or if you're really super interested in the person. That's what dating is for. So number one, I would say have courage. And Joe, I think you mentioned in the first webinar, you said you got to a place where your desire sort of shifted, like that, correct me if I'm wrong, but just that your goal was not necessarily that things would work out, but it became just that the woman would leave more loved, feeling more loved. And I think that's so beautiful. As a woman, when a guy asks me out, even if there's not a second date or no mutual interest, what I admire is the courage that he had to ask me out, taking a step. It shows me that he is brave, and it also reminds me that I'm worthy. So, yeah, ask people out, say yes, go on dates. Good. You got a question for Liz from an anonymous attendee. What are your thoughts on age difference? So a lady that I know wants to set up a blind date between me and her brother-in-law. There's a 6-year age difference. We are both Catholic and are looking for a relationship. Thoughts on age difference?
Yeah, I would say I think it depends on the unique individuals, for sure. I think if you're on the same page as to, like, again, the intentionality you were talking about, like, so, if someone, like, depending on, like, if you're, I don't know, let's say you're 19 or 20 and the other person is like 28. I'm just throwing numbers out there. It's just important to kind of be on the same page. Like you just said, like, it's good to date, not take it too seriously, like the next best step, right? Like, what's the next best step? I want to ask her out, so I'm going to go ahead. And you want to just kind of, enjoy that dance or whatever. You're kind of still sort of, also you're still figuring out who you are and what you're all about, like what your gifts are and what brings you life and the direction of your life. And so you're kind of in this unique and beautiful space in your life. The person who's 28 might have been waiting for a while and might want to be married ASAP. And so I guess all I'm saying is that if, depending on the circumstances and on the people, if you're both on the same page about what the intention of, like, the intentions behind, like, starting to date, then I think if you're on the same page, it's great. I have lots of friends whose parents had a huge age gap and who have had beautiful, long, just beautiful marriages. And some of the gaps are pretty big, right? I mean, and we're talking a whole generation ago or two, I suppose. Now I have to keep that. But so there was a whole other set of, there's a whole, I won't even get into that, but just to say that I think the bottom line is yeah, if you're on the same page, and I wouldn't, like, I don't know, that space, I just want to go back to that point. That space is so important. It's so important to enjoy that time as well. So if you're like 19, 20, 21, like, it just depends on where you're at. Like, it's really good to take that time and enjoy it and really discover, who you are and how you want to make a gift to yourself in the world. And like Des was saying, that running towards Jesus. And so, yeah, I think not to rush that part in a way. But like I said, if you're on the same page, then it's all good. I don't see any major issues. And if somebody else here does, please share.
Well said. All righty. We have one more question left for each of you. So we'll start with Desmond here. From an anonymous attendee, I'm always second guessing what God wants me to do when it comes to relationships. Is there a way to overcome that?
Yeah, good question. It's hard to know without knowing the exact context in terms of the second. If the reason is because you're trying to like sort it out on your own, if that is the case, I can't recommend enough as a young person, as a young adult, to seek out a mentor. That's how we're able to. You're trying to do things on your own in the dark, especially with these situations where it's emotional. The analogy I kind of use, it's like if your thoughts are like $100 bills, when you talk to someone that you trust, that's like a mentor, you kind of put them on the table, and then you're able to be like, oh, well, that's a counterfeit, and then you think more clearly. So to be very assertive and aggressive in seeking out someone that has kind of walked further than you, they're further ahead. And most people are honored when you're like, hey, do you mind? I'm trying to like sort some things out here. I admire you. You're someone who is older, has some more experience. Do you mind if I go for a coffee or have a chat? So to be assertive and aggressive and seek a mentor of some sort, and that can bring a lot of clarity. It was exceptionally helpful for myself to have mentors at different stages in my life, and even now seeking them out, very helpful to.
That's so important. Find a mentor if you don't already have one. But so good. Thank you, Des. Liz, asked by Danielle. Danielle says, my boyfriend is from Guatemala and I'm Canadian. Do you have any advice for dating across cultures?
Celebrate the differences, openness to the beauty of different cultures. I think it's a beautiful thing to to get to know another culture, and it's good to maintain a sense of humor because it's new, and sometimes you feel kind of like a fish out of water, depending on like when you're I don't know if you're meeting this person's family or if it's this long distance. I don't know the context, but as you journey in that relationship and you're getting to know that culture, it's a beautiful thing to be open. It's also important obviously to communicate about the things you don't understand, right? To have an open mind and ask questions and seek to understand, and to be honest when you don't understand, or maybe you don't agree with certain things. Like I think your relationship has to be like strong enough to be able to be honest when you don't agree with certain cultural differences. And if you can't be, then maybe you need to evaluate that. And if this relationship's headed towards marriage, then you're gonna have to deal. You don't just marry the person, you marry the family and the culture. And we have lots of funny stories that we don't have time to get into, but it's been a wonderful, at least for me, it's been amazing to invite Desmond into my Mexican heritage and family and culture and into his. And ultimately, aside from even just like aside from like nationality, cultures sort of thing, we all come from a different family culture, like in a big way. And so it applies even for those who are not dating somebody who's like of a completely different country or culture. It sort of still applies that you have to be really good at communicating, really open, really honest, and enjoy the beauty of like the differences too. So
Mexican American, awesome. Enjoy they're passionate. The food's amazing. Way more fun. Way more fun.
Love it.
I've learned to talk with my hands more. It's too.
And there's Newfoundland over there, so yeah we've been there, and the family's amazing too. So it's fun. It's fun. Yeah.
Celebrate the differences. All right, Jojo. I am in a relationship. This is from Katie. I'm in a relationship that is very healthy, and we have a close friendship, but I don't think I'm in love with him. To be honest, I'm not sure what it means, especially since society plagues me with their ideas of love. My question is, how do you know you are in love? How do you know if it's better to remain friends with a person rather than going further?
Oh, great question. Okay, so I immediately thought of a spiritual giant, Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee says, love is like a friendship caught on fire. The beginning a flame, very pretty, often hot and fierce, but still only light and flickering. As love grows older, our hearts mature and our love becomes as coals, deep burning and unquenchable. I don't know if he actually wrote that, but it's like all over the internet. So I'm going to take it as truth. And you know what? It's just a great question, because what a beautiful place to start a relationship is friendship, right? You want to eventually, I think, be able to say, like, this is my best friend, you know, and I got to marry my best friend. So on one level, the fact that Danielle's experiencing this, it's a good sign. It's a good sign, you know, friendship, you know. And then I guess, like, for me, when I thought about it, because it can be kind of confusing, because it's like, oh man, it seems to have all the ingredients there, but why is it, like, I'm not sure, you know? And so I wonder, yeah, that spark, or that a good friend of mine, Adrian Boudreau, would say that je ne sais quoi factor, the I don't know, is there, that you desire more. You know, and that's the whole thing of, like, for me, it's like more than just friends. So it's like, do you have a desire to build a home with them? Do you have a desire to raise a family with them? Do you have a desire to really go deeper into their mind, into their heart, into their past, into their hurts, into their fears? And even Desmond kind of mentioned it too, and I think it's kind of an interesting and very important thing is, are you attracted to the person? And it's totally not just, it's okay to talk about that, it's really important, because nobody, when you get married, wants to hear, I love you, I'm just not attracted to you. Like, such a dagger to the heart. So I mean, yeah, you can be friends, but you'd be like, yeah, but they're my friend, I'm not really, like, attracted to them. Well, that's like, that's a good part, like, to help you discern that I mean, you don't have to make that up. Like, I don't think you'd be like, oh, if I squint really hard, or if I pray more rosaries, then I'm gonna, like, be like physically attracted to them. Like, I mean, it's okay to just say that. I mean, how you say that is another thing. But leave that to Desmond. Desmond's going to answer that part for you. But just the point of, like, again, this idea of friendship caught a flame. So I think it's beautiful to have a friendship where you can be honest and you can be real. Those are great ingredients. But do you desire more? Do you desire, like, do you desire them to be the mother of your children, or the father of your children? You know, when you think of yourself, even too, like, naked without shame, could you see that with that person as well? Or like, oh my gosh, it's my friend. No, I don't want them in that room. Well, here you go. So, those are just a few thoughts. I don't know if you guys, I feel like anybody could talk on this topic, but again, I think a lot of people would relate to Danielle's question, because it's like, I have this really great person in my life, and even maybe you're dating already, things are going well, there's no red flags. Because I think too, like, you could, you know, be in a relationship and nothing's like overtly wrong. It's just, it just doesn't have the je ne sais quoi factor. So I don't know if anybody wants to add to that, but those are just great questions. And I pray for you, Danielle. So.
Well done, Joe. Well done.
Well done. You should get Adrian Boudreau to have a little leaflet or something about the je ne.
Yeah. It's just a picture of Adrian with je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
Awesome. Adelaide, are you ready? So we have a question from Julia, not me, different Julia. What are your thoughts or ideas on dating or marrying someone who is not Catholic? If someone believes that the love of their life was not Catholic, is the relationship still full of love and able to be joined in marriage?
Yeah, I love that question, because it's one that's even near and dear to my heart. My dad's not Catholic, and My mother is. My mom was raised in a big Catholic family. My father was raised in a Christian denomination household and then left the faith as an adult. However, my father supported my mom in raising 8 of us Catholic, helped us to learn the faith, grow in the faith, supported my mother informing us in a relationship with the Lord, informing us in the Catholic faith. And so it's possible. I can first and foremost say that my parents are celebrating 30 years of marriage next week, and have raised 8, faithful children along their marriage together. I will say that there's been challenges, as there are with any marriage, but there's, special challenges that come with that I've experienced, through my mother's journey and through her even sharing that journey. And I think one of the biggest ones that I took away and, took to heart in discerning my own vocation was this idea of your heart fully being known. My mom, going through her marriage, would take all of us to church, but my dad would never come. And my mom would sit in bed with her lap full of prayer books, and my dad would watch television. So there was an area of her heart that wasn't fully really known, as she tried to, strive to learn more about the faith and grow in prayer, grow in relationship, and to live that life of her, her Catholic faith. She wasn't quite met in that space, supported, but not quite met in that space. And I think that what challenged me was I knew as I stepped into my faith became my own, and I had this relationship with Christ. I knew that there was a compartment of my heart, a fullness, an aspect of the fullness of my heart that could not fully be known by my spouse if he didn't also share a heart for Christ. And that was something that gave me pause, because I fell in love with the Lord and wanted to live wholeheartedly for the Lord, and wanted to, live the sacramental life in its totality. And I wanted to share that passion and that love with my spouse. So there's a balancing act. Can you have a marriage full of love if, that relationship with Christ isn't there? I think it's possible, because I've seen it in my parents' relationship. I think there's challenges to be cognizant of. And for me, that biggest challenge was that, we've talked about being known, and my heart I given to the Lord. And I knew that if I married someone who didn't have a heart for the Lord, then I wouldn't fully be able to be met in that space and be fully known. The counter, there's an aspect of maybe he isn't Catholic, but he's Christian. He has a relationship with the Lord. And so the only challenge there I would just kind of point out is, our goal of marriage and our mission in marriage is to get our spouses to heaven. The sacraments are sanctifying. They make us holy. They help heal us. They help us journey to heaven. And I desired for my spouse to be enter into that communion that we find in the sacraments with me. I wanted my spouse to, desire my sanctification. I wanted my spouse to be able to, have that goal to raise saints with me. And so, part of that is I wanted him to be able to be sitting next to me at Mass and be able to partake in the sacraments. But again, I think it's possible, but I think there are challenges. And so reflecting on the fact that you can't be in total communion with that person in the sacraments, is your goal in marriage to be sanctifying one another, helping the other get to heaven? Is your goal to raise saints together? How are you going to approach that, whether you're in another Christian denomination, and how those differences lie? And just know that there are challenges too when, your child asks, well, why does daddy not go to church? Why does daddy go to a different church? Why can't daddy receive communion? And just so there's big questions that come up as you're raising a family when you aren't, I guess, of the same faith. So are there differences to be celebrated in that different faith? There are, I'm sure. But there will be challenges, and so just being, I think, conscientious. So that's kind of what I would share on that.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so, so much. I am looking at the time here, and so I know we have to wrap up now. I want to say thank you to our participants. Thank you for coming back. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you for your time. the first webinar, for your overtime the first webinar, and for your time and overtime today. You guys are lovely, and I have really, really just basked in all of the truth and beauty and goodness of your vocation. So thank you for sharing that and for being here tonight. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're a wonderful host. You make it very easy, very positive.
Ah.
I wish all our participants the very best on their journey.
Thanks so much. So I'm just going to quickly recap that next week on Tuesday at 2 p.m. we are going to have a Do Something Amazing with Your Life webinar. So if you or somebody else you know you think would make a great candidate to become an Ant missionary, or it's just searching for that next right step in their life, register for the webinar, write down any questions that you might have about becoming an Ant missionary, and then come get the answers that you need to decide. So we hope to see you there. It's been lovely to get to spend this time with you, and see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.